Yeah, I'll always be a metalhead. Nothing can take that away from me.
Right.
I mean, not jail, not people, not religion, not anything. I'll always be a metalhead. That makes it all right.
You're listening to the Great Metal Debate Podcast.
Welcome back to the Great Metal Debate Podcast for another amazing metal album review. Today we're looking at the new one by UK symphonic power metal crew Fellowship with their second full-length album, The Skies Above Eternity, released by Scarlet Records. Fellowship is a band that appeared on the scene just a few years ago and immediately received a lot of positive perception by power metal fans, so much so it makes me question if I missed something. I had heard their 2022 debut, The Saberlight Chronicles, maybe once, and for whatever reason didn't find it worth revisiting. But Fellowship has definitely blown up and made a name for themselves in the genre, including appearing on the bills of Epic Fest in Denmark and Mad with Power Fest in the US. I'll go ahead and somewhat telegraph my conclusions out of the gate. Based on this album at least, I think folks who are sky high about Fellowship should tamp down their enthusiasm, but certainly any haters need to reevaluate their take because there's a lot to appreciate as well. I'll roll through the 9 tracks quickly and then give more thoughts to explain my take. Right away on the opening song, Hold Up Your Hearts Again, one notices the feelings of light and the modulated, uplifting touch Fellowship brings to the formulation. This is a fast track with double bass drum galore, some well-placed guitar virtuosity, and keyboard highlights, all of which creates a happy-go-lucky, energetic ambiance that many will find infectious. I'm not a big fan of going an octave high at song's end, but otherwise not much to criticize here. Track number 2 is Victim and is likely my favorite number on the album, primarily due to the strong choral melody. There's a good tension here between the more aggressive bridges, jittery verses, and the vocal-soaked, oversized chorus. You can feel some bittersweetness to the singing, which is welcome, and riffs echo that feeling. It kind of loses that edge toward song's end, but otherwise an outstanding composition. Bitter Winds gives a hyper-neoclassical guitar delivery that isn't without its merits. Very proggy and Euro power sounding with some interesting bass fills and the orchestration adding a smart texture alongside the riffs, and the turbo catchy melody providing a hearty chorus. Next we get Dawnbreaker, which is simply a massive uplifting power metal trope of a song. It's not parody, but it sure could be parody. Extremely well done for what it is. There's not much more to say about this one. East Asian Flair greets the listener in the intro to the 4th song, Eternity, which I suppose is something short of, but also kind of like an album title track. Despite being lower in the mix, there's something very appealing about the chugging guitars here, although I found the lead break disappointing. The song has a strange amalgam of time changes. Credit to Fellowship for mixing in a lot of competing musical ideas on this one, even if I didn't feel they'd necessarily all work together. The next one is titled King of Nothing, which provides perhaps the heaviest guitar tone we hear on the album, although even that is restrained, and certainly the most aggressive overall feel we get on any of the songs. There's a hint of counter melody that sets things off in a pleasing manner. Just a bit more bite to the sound, including the backing orchestration even having a touch of sharpness. World Ends Slowly has a Sonata Arctica feel to it. The chorus is so sickly sweet that I want to hate it, but I will grudgingly admit it is super catchy, and I can't help but find myself singing along. A nice solo doesn't hurt either. The 8th track in the listing is A New Hope, which opens with something reminiscent of a Christmas melody. Certainly very evocative of the holiday spirit overall. I didn't love this one. There's a lot of interesting elements and ideas, but to me the sum was less than the parts. The album closer is Memories on the Wind, which is basically an orchestral representation of the themes from earlier in the album. Not really a proper song, so I should have amended what I said earlier that this album is a mere 8 tracks plus an extended musical outro. I have a variety of disconnected thoughts to share about this album, but I will try to organize them a bit for efficiency. First, singer Matthew Corey's voice is both powerful and pleasant, and he impresses with his ability to manage against the symphonic mix with the strength of his diaphragm. Other than one misplaced falsetto on track 1, he hits all the notes and conveys genuine emotion in his tone. That said, one of the problems I have with Fellowship's approach overall is that there isn't enough contrast provided between its saccharine sweet singing and the rest of the music. I really noticed this in the few places where the instrumentation dropped out entirely, as on World Ends Slowly, and there was at least the contrast with the silence. If you were going to have a metal band with vocals that are so slick and sugary, basically a singing style that would be at home in adult contemporary rock, You really need something with a touch more rawness for contrast. Musically, and I've hinted at this earlier, the guitars don't crunch as much as I would like throughout. It's not so much that I need the distortion up front in the mix, but that, again, the contrast with the vocals would be helpful. That said, the guitar work is effective, and I appreciated the subtle infusion of neoclassical playing in places. Bass guitar is present throughout the album and often noticeable, as are the keys. There is a lot of keyboard and vocal layering happening, and Fellowship makes some judicious use of effects like bells and various other symphonic instrumental sounds. The orchestration is generally solid, although not so impressive as to merit the inclusion of the final track previously referenced. Callum Tuffin's drumming on the album is outstanding, and a key element of the album's overall vitality. As far as the overall aesthetic, the mood created by Fellowship is consistently uplifting, victorious, and frankly happy. It evokes a fantasy atmosphere, almost Tolkien-esque, which I guess shouldn't be a surprise given the band's logo font, with gorgeous sound and adventurous melodic structures. I wouldn't say that what Fellowship does here is innovative overall, but there is a freshness to the execution and some creative takes. While there are no overt references to Christianity, if one didn't know better, they would be forgiven for thinking this was a white metal album along the lines of Lightmare or Theocracy. Just being honest, The Skies Above Eternity is too much sunshine and rainbows for my taste. If I have one suggestion for Fellowship going forward, it would be to mix in just a couple of darker, moodier tracks on the next album. Not simply for their own sake, but because the comparison would make the band's lighter songs shine even brighter. Despite my criticisms, this is great symphonic power metal, virtuous, melodic, fast, and competently produced. For a certain subset of true power metal fanatics, this new Fellowship album will be manna from heaven. But for other metal fans, the totality of Fellowship's music, production, and vocals are more acquired taste, and some portions won't taste as good as others. But if you like the last Twilight Force release and are not afraid of uplifting and sometimes too happy-sounding metal, you should check out this record, as it is one of the best displays of the most positive elements of the power metal genre. Fellowship's The Skies Above Eternity is released by Scarlet Records on November 22nd. You can purchase the new album via scarletrecords.com, Bandcamp, and other places you find quality metal music.